At the end of the rainbow there's happiness, and to find it, how often I've tried. But my life is a race, just a wild goose chase, and my dreams have all been denied.
Hi, welcome to hell. My hell, at least, because I'm sitting in front of a 15,000 word script about Hazbin Hotel. And I really do not like Hazbin Hotel. Despite this, it's been gripping my brain like a barnacle. I've invested a lot of time into watching this show, and I've spent even more time wringing my hands in a dark corner, rocking back and forth, wondering why this show is the way that it is. So I want to get these thoughts out of my head and into yours. I want to share my opinions in case anybody might be feeling the same way, but maybe don't quite know how to articulate those thoughts. Before I do so, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Birdie. I'm a writer, a dungeon master, and a lover of stories. I am under no illusion that writing a TV show is easy. The opinions I will share are from the perspective of an audience member, a mere consumer of the product of Hazbin Hotel. I say audience member, not fan, because I certainly am not one, and I don't want to yuck anyone's yum. If you like Hazbin Hotel, great, I'm happy for you. Tell me your secret. But if you don't like hearing people trash the show, don't watch this video. It's not for you. I do have a lot of respect for what Hazbin Hotel represents symbolically. I am genuinely deeply proud of everyone who has put a hand in making this show the success that it is. As a creative, it's really inspiring to watch a once independent Vizzy Pop turn her story concept into a trending TV show with a huge budget and a cast list filled with household names. Even so, I have a lot to say about what, in my opinion, Hazbin gets wrong. Also, I'm not in the fandom. I'm not familiar with every tweet and bluesky and tumbly that Vizzy Pop has posted revealing that Dumbledore was secretly gay the whole time. I don't care about what is fanon, and I don't care about general information about the show that is understood in the fandom but not made explicit within the confines of the actual show. I'm not interested in excusing bad writing with speculation about what the show could be or filling plot holes with headcanon. I'm going to be discussing the show in a state of vacuum, like the average viewer. Content warning for Hazbin typical stuff, the fuck word, violence, and sexual abuse. I'll be putting up timestamps on the screen if you want to skip around as I'm discussing more sensitive topics. Also, don't watch this if you haven't seen seasons 1 and season 2, unless you're a local and you don't care about spoilers. Remember, leave your sins at the door. Here's the key to your room. However brief it may be, please enjoy your stay. Right, what's all this then? Birdie, if you don't like Hazbin Hotel, why are you spending so much time talking about it? I hear you. That's a great question, and I'll give you a good answer at the end of this video if you behave and become redeemed. But there's a lot to talk about, isn't there? Hazbin Hotel is the hottest thing on Tumblr right now, challenged only by Dan and Phil confirming fan Israel. It's actually amazing that those two things happened at the same time. And surely you've heard plenty about Hazbin Hotel if you clicked on this video. It's a show that's been infamous for its controversies long before the pilot came out 6 years ago. I'm sure you've had your ear talked off about the show's art style looking funny, how the character designs are bad, which they are, and the glaring problem with body diversity. It's basically a rite of tradition in the fan artist community to redesign the character cast. I don't have anything to say about this that hasn't been said before. If you want to watch a cool video about Hazbin Hotel's art style problem, then I suggest this video, Hazbin Hotel Thoughts from a Professional Character Designer by Mepity. I stole her Charlie cosplay for this video. She has some really great well-informed ideas, so I'll leave a link in the description. Also, I am an artist myself, so I will be taking jabs at the character designs when I deem appropriate. The writing of the show is also quite bad. The plot's conflicts are unclear and unfocused. I noticed that our protagonists tended to forget which problems they were solving in what order, and they're very easily distractible. For example, the hotel itself is abandoned by the cast in the second half of season 1 in favor of pursuing the plotline of stopping Heaven's Next extermination. Entire episodes pass in which nothing changes from beginning to end, meaning precious time that could be spent telling an interesting story is wasted. Besides learning that people in hell can ascend to heaven, the status quo never changes. After 2 seasons of Hazbin Hotel, the genocide against Hell has been stopped for now, justice has not been given to the dead, and power has not changed hands one bit. The Vees are all still alive and still control the same spheres of influence. The caste system is inconsistent and contradictory. For example, Lucifer and Charlie are the king and princess of Hell, but are made to be at the same level of authority as all the other sinners. Charlie is treated like a child by just about all of her peers, and Lucifer is disrespected by the overlords. You should watch Vizzy Pop can't write caste systems by striking sarcophagus. They compare the social hierarchy in the Helliverse with that of Homestucks. The magic system is as soft and vague as Alastor's asexuality, but there are a lot of combat scenes involving characters with wildly different accesses to resources, physical power, and social influence. This would benefit from a harder magic system so that the audience can infer from social class that, say, Lucifer could defeat Alastor, could defeat Husk. But we don't have a frame of reference for the cost of magic or the power scale across the citizens of Hell, so we don't know how impressive it is that as the Princess of Hell, Charlie can make her horns grow real long. And when Vox and Alastor basically level a city together like King Kong versus Godzilla, we don't know how easy this was for them, if they experience any sort of exhaustion or depletion of resources by this insane exertion of power. And we get ridiculous moments like Sir Pentious being blasted to dust in one hit, or Vox being defeated with something as underwhelmingly simple as Valentino pulling his head off. Without a firmer magic system, the battles look sick as fuck, yes, but the writers cannot be held accountable for inconsistencies. What's stopping our protagonists from one punch manning their problems away? And this show's humor
You hit like a girl.
is not for me. So there certainly is plenty to talk about, even for someone like me who generally thinks that Hazbin Hotel is disappointingly poorly written despite all the money and talent being poured into it. I would love to expand on the points of interest I've just brought up, but to do so I'd probably have to make a video for every single episode and go line by line analyzing the dialogue. And look, I don't actually care that much, and I don't want to be committing the sin of having a Prime Video subscription longer than I have to. I would like to take the time to talk about something that audiences, even those who don't know the first thing about storytelling, have an innate gauge for the quality of, an innate emotional investment in. I want to talk about the characters of Hazbin Hotel. But firstly, what makes for a well-written character? The following list is a guideline that I personally use and do my best to look out for when I'm writing characters in fanfiction or NPCs in D&D campaigns. As a consumer, it's also inspired by what I find to make a good character in other people's stories. My god, I have to say the word character so much in this section, please bear with me. Also, I'm going to be referencing the characters of Avatar: The Last Airbender, not because I think it's comparable to Hazbin Hotel, but because pretty much everyone has seen it and everyone agrees that it's the GOAT. Consistency. I don't mean that characters or even real people can't be inconsistent. I mean that a well-written character is one whose background and identity is consistent with their actions. The audience should be able to predict how they will act in a given scenario based on what we know about their past experiences. And if we aren't shown those past experiences, we should be able to infer what future decisions they will make based on the choices we do see them make. Katara lost her mother as a child and was forced into the role of caregiver in order to fill the social gap left behind by that loss. Because of this backstory and the responsibilities she assigned to herself when grouped with Aang and Sokka, we can predict that her choices are influenced by a habit of behaving motherly. Identifiability. When a character is consistent, their future decisions become easy for an audience to predict. And this is a good thing because it means that you have created a person who is rooted in their reality, who is shown to react to their environment in a way that is influenced by their upbringing. The stronger the foundations of their personality, the stronger their character voice. This is something in particular I have a lot of fun with in my writing. An identifiable character is one whose identity is fleshed out so fully that an audience member could attach an isolated line of dialogue to that personality. For example, take this dialogue line from Avatar. Hey, I never asked you for diddly doo-dah. I carry my own weight. We can infer that the speaker is somewhat childish. They are independent, aggressively so. They do not like asking for help and they do not like others perceiving them as weak. If you're familiar with the cast of Avatar, you know that this line would never come out of the mouth of a character like Sokka, because he is well characterized as a sociable boy whose confidence and insecurities partially come from how much support he has received from the women in his life. You know that this is absolutely something that Toph Beifong would say, because she is well characterized as someone who takes frustration when her disability is misperceived as a burden that she cannot find power in. She has a very solid character voice. Importance. Even if a character is minor, they are a waste of design and a waste of dialogue if they do not serve the story. If your cast has a lot of excess fat untrimmed, the meat suffers because it takes up less space. Your main characters should be heavily invested in the plot, and your side characters should support other characters' personal growth, should support conflicts, should support your story's themes. If you have a character who sits doing nothing, who does not influence in any way, that is a massive waste of energy that could be spent reinforcing world building or fleshing out the main cast or doing literally anything else that is relevant to the story that you are trying to tell. Uncle Iroh is a side character that exists only to support Prince Zuko's redemption arc. Other than his philosophies which connect us to Avatar's themes, he isn't isn't really that important to the plot of Avatar, but because he is used specifically to embody Zuko's inner sense of morality and to contrast the cruelty of the values he was raised with, Iroh makes Zuko a more dynamic personality, and is a massive chunk of what makes Zuko's arc so filled with really interesting and profound conflict. Researchedness. This point will rely heavily on how fantastical your setting is and the world building within. But often, even in fantasy settings, the cultures, fashion, vocabulary, and traditions we invent are based on real-world cultures, whether intentional or not. When we build a character who comes from a distinct heritage inspired by a real-world culture, or someone who has a specific complicated job, it benefits your story greatly to do your research, and that's for a couple of reasons. Firstly, remember the expression write what you know. When you take the time to build your knowledge on a specific topic, you unlock the ability to explore it in greater detail and nuance. And your audience will feel this too, feel that they can trust you with having a more complete understanding than they might even have. Inversely, if you choose to write about a subject that you know little about, your lack of knowledge will quickly become apparent to you, and your inability to elaborate will quickly become apparent to your audience as well. Doing your research is also important because it prevents harm. If you are writing about a character's profession as a fantasy Tai Chi instructor like Master Paku, it would benefit you to become more knowledgeable about Tai Chi, partly because you would be better prepared in adapting it into a fantasy setting without betraying its cultural value. Aang is a character deeply rooted in his heritage as an airbender, which is a fantasy culture based on the real culture of Tibetan Buddhism. Good research into Buddhism allowed the writers of Avatar to adapt it into a fantasy setting without bastardization. Not representing it wholly, yes, because airbending culture is still wildly different from the real culture that it is based on, but also not representing it in an ignorant or mocking manner. The Earth Kingdom is based on ancient China, and Ba Sing Se inspired by China's history of censorship. We can see in the attention to detail put in the clothing, hairstyles, foods, social norms, and class differences that the writers of Avatar have created an homage to their source of inspiration. If the writers had relied on stereotypes of their source cultures, we would see it in the final product. We would see underdeveloped world building and possibly lazy racist caricatures of real people. It's important to avoid this by putting in the work to understand what it is you want to write about, because it means we're not excluding any groups of people from enjoying our story. If you want the aesthetic of a culture without understanding its complexity, you will fall into stereotypes that perpetuates real harm. Likability. This might be controversial, but I believe the main protagonist should be likable, specifically the main protagonist. Not necessarily a good person, not necessarily liked by the other characters of the story, but likable to the audience. This is purely based on the subjective feeling of the audience, and I don't think it's necessarily related to the quality of the writing, but I do believe that it is helpful in helping your audience perceive the main protagonist as being well written. As the audience, we project onto the main character because they are our point of view. It's their actions and feelings, and by extension, our actions and feelings, that impact the plot the most and serve as a vessel for us to enter their world. We want to feel satisfied by the things that they do and by the things that happen to them. What I mean is, we want to root for the main character's success. We are invested in their goals and we're sad when they fail, but only if they're likable. Take, for example, Aang. He is a child, which makes him a flawed leader. He is prone to escapism and is not mature enough to fully emotionally handle what the story asks of him. But his personality is earnest, playful, curious. We are shown that he's open and accepting towards like-minded individuals who share his goals. We want Aang to defeat Ozai, not just because Aang is the good guy and Ozai is the bad guy, but because we like Aang. He's kind, funny, he does not drag his feet in pursuing the narrative, he does not intentionally make his challenges harder for himself, he faces many personal struggles, and we feel that he does not deserve his pain. We feel that Aang deserves to win. If the character is unlikable, by which I mean annoying, out of touch, or excessively self-destructive, it becomes harder to root for them. We would want an unlikable main character who, remember, the audience perceives as an extension of themselves, to fail their goals in the hopes that they will grow as a person. An example of this for me is Avatar Korra. Korra's personality at the beginning of the series is extremely hot-headed, inexperienced, and self-important. These personality traits cause her to create problems for herself. She is the cause of a lot of her own failures in season 1. She is good-hearted, yes, but we see her actively reject help from the people around her that are like-minded because she doesn't fully appreciate how valuable her allies are. Purely from the perspective of the audience, this is frustrating to watch because Korra works against the factions the audience supports. She becomes, in a way, antagonistic to the smooth progression of her goals. In watching The Legend of Korra, I found myself wanting Korra to fail. This isn't how people work in real life, but I wanted the character of Korra to realize that sometimes her own faults are the cause of her failures, and I wanted to believe that the lessons she learned from those experiences would force her to grow into a better person. I think this is a natural thing to experience as an audience member. Characters aren't real people, and we want their life journeys to be satisfying and fun to watch. On a related note of audience feelings, there are certain things that we look for in antagonists that don't necessarily make good writing, but do make for good viewer experience. If an antagonist represents a minor conflict against our main character, we want them to feel challenging, but ultimately defeatable. In order to defeat them, our heroes must sacrifice something or build themselves stronger. The antagonist can serve as a stepping stone in the progression of a character arc, or can serve in the progression of the story's conflict. If an antagonist character represents a major conflict against our heroes, the challenge they pose should be taken very seriously by the narrative, that the stakes are raised to their highest heights, and the audience becomes deeply invested in figuring out how the heroes will solve the puzzle of their defeat. Zuko and Azula represent hurdles to jump, and their defeat means our heroes are closer to achieving their goals, or that they have earned a reward. Ozai represents a wall of fire, literally. He is incredibly intimidating and a genuine do-or-die threat to our heroes' success. Again, a well-written antagonist doesn't always fit these ideas, but as an audience member, we do look for these kinds of things to find them satisfying. To recap, in my opinion, a well-written character should be consistent, identifiable, important, researched, and likable. I want to talk about where Hazbin Hotel succeeds in these. We see some really strong character voices and some character consistencies. But also within Hazbin's characters are inconsistent motivations, shallow personality builds, characters who waste air, protagonists that frustratingly work against their own self-interests, and unintimidating antagonists. Before I buy it, we'll play nice. We'll start with someone whose character build I think is actually very well researched and consistent. Vox.
Our brand is perfection, remember? We cannot let ourselves look weak to other overlords or to sinners.
Okay, it's starting to get hot in here. I can't take this anymore. There we go. All cosplays are held together by duct tape and hair ties. In my opinion, Vox is a very well-written character, and the reason that he works so well as an antagonist is because the writers have invested a lot of screen time into fleshing out his personhood. We can infer so much about his personality through his backstory, his interactions with his peers and inferiors, and how he goes about achieving his goals. This is a deeply, deeply insecure person who relies on others for his self-worth. Vox doesn't believe that who he truly is valuable enough to those that he wants to ally with, so he spends his entire life looking to people that have the life that he wishes he had, and then steals their identity, puts on their skin like clothing. He needs those that are above him in social status to validate him being next to them, and if he can't get that validation, he kills them. He artificially moves himself up to that higher status. Vox is a social creature. He cannot do what he does if he does not have an audience to bear witness. He has proven his value enough to earn the companionship of Velvet and Valentino, and with the Vees, he has created a team of equals. Because he takes comfort in having these two peers of equal footing, and because he cannot kill them and take their place, he relies on them heavily to shape a sense of identity, to validate him. He uses Valentino for sexual gratification and Velvet for the extension of his societal influence. He also turns to those that he has dominated for validation. A cult leader is no leader without a flock of sheep.
Trust me, trust us. No, I meant to say us.
Vox Tech's motto, trust me, trust us, is emblematic of how Vox would hold no power on his own. He needs others to support his weight. This complex takes him quite far in achieving his singular goal, gaining power.
You mean the cult? You could call it a cult, but I'd say it was more of a movement. And I was the center of it. And I swear I'd never felt closer to being a god. That's a feeling that I'd give anything to get back.
But because Vox has such an unstable sense of self-worth, this goal can never truly be achieved. It's never enough to prove himself to himself. Vox, as he is not good enough to be the host of his own news show or his own weather channel, and he isn't worthy enough to partner with the most powerful demon in hell. He can't seize these things on his own to accumulate power, so he becomes absolutely obsessed with controlling them. He will do anything to have control, even if it means killing the guy who actually has all the control and pretending he can fill those shoes.
We're the biggest fish in hell. How about we upgrade the bowl? It's time for growth. Let's rule a boat. Take total control. To everyone who doubted me, your doubting days are done.
It's pathetic. His desperate need for validation, his need to stay on top, to have control, becomes his downfall. Even when he has everything, when he's basically a god onto the people of hell, it's never enough for him, because there's still one person who holds more power than he does, Alastor. And Alastor does not accept Vox as a peer, so Vox must destroy him. Vox is obsessed with his own power being validated by Alastor. It absolutely consumes him. Take a look at this scene.
We were just talking.
Seemed more like begging to me.
I don't beg. I was clearly demanding. Valentino, you will listen. And you will call Angeinl Dust here tonight.
Look how sharply he pivots. When Vox thinks he's alone with Valentino, he tries to manipulate Val in the way that he thinks would work best on his target, through sex. But the moment he knows Alastor is watching, he falls apart. We see his greatest weakness. His top concern is appearing powerful and having control over others' perception of himself, so he changes his approach. He does what he thinks will impress Alastor and demands help from his minion. And because of that, he loses control over Valentino. Alastor is the hurdle he cannot jump on the track to achieving his goals, because at the end of the day, Vox's goals were never really about a conquest to own heaven or to be the new king of hell. It was about becoming so strong, so high above literally everybody else, that he becomes impossible to hurt.
Fuck hell! Fuck heaven! And fuck all of you! As long as I wipe that smile off Alastor's fucking face, I don't care what happens.
This is a really interesting character trait in a villain. Insecurity. Vox was able to climb the social ladder not because of his own merit, but because he was willing to commit evils to get there. He has no issue in using others as stepping stones, creating allies that he knew he would inevitably turn against once he became stronger than them. But even if Vox were able to conquer both heaven and hell, he still would never truly win because he does not believe his own hype. Vox's backstory is what I would consider very well researched because his emotional complex is very consistent with his choices. It aligns with his backstory as a strategic serial killer and aligns with what his social circles look like as one of the Vees. That being said, for someone who is obsessed with having his authority unchallenged, he doesn't seem to present himself with authority in mind. I'm sorry, but this top hat is so ridiculous. He's supposed to be a man of progress, but bro is wearing coattails and a dickie. His body shape is so unserious. It suffers from the Vivzy Pop special. He's got broad shoulders with a tiny waist and long skinny legs. I think it'd suit him better to be like barrel chested because I just think he would walk around with his chest puffed out, you know, like this faux masculinity. I also think his kooky eye is just really dumb.
With your safety.
You're not going over there.
Val, what did you just say?
First fucking thing you told me?
Rat. Just the one.
Do it yourself. What?
And those were only moments from his first appearance in episode 2. Christ, it's so embarrassing. Vox, I'm cringing for you. It takes away any aura of intimidation. I like that sometimes his screen will glitch out, and that's used rarely. I can't dunk on this clown too hard though, because he gets what he deserves in the end, and his voice actor is the love of my life, Christian Borle.
Christian Boyhole, where are you?
Overall, Vox's downfall is a pleasure to watch unfold.
Alastor! Do you mind? I'm in the middle of breakfast.
They go glug 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 glug.
Mama huevo.
As much as I hate to admit it, because Alastor looks like he comes from a lab that clones Tumblr's sexy men, Alastor is my favorite character. He's so enjoyable to watch, and his background trolling throughout season 2 is really funny because Alastor's sense of humor is so strikingly different from everybody else's in the show. He is functionally the straight man. He doesn't entertain Angeinl Dust's sex jokes.
And what can you do, my effeminate fellow?
I can suck your dick.
Ha! No.
And he doesn't even particularly use curse words. It's as if he doesn't care to be funny in a way that conforms to Hell's toilet humor. Alastor thinks that the funniest thing of all is just belittling people. He is at his coolest and most confident when he's just being mean. We see him intimidate Husk, manipulate Charlie into making a deal, verbally kicking Vox in the fucking balls all throughout season 2. When Alastor acts scary, it's effective because he takes such joy in it to give the impression that acting scary comes very naturally to him. And it's also effective because he's good at it.
Oh, fuck! You need me to join your team! And here I thought you might actually be approaching my level, but asking for assistance? A partnership? I am quite disappointed in you.
This dig at Vox is a little silly considering that Alastor needed Rosie for power, but I digress. He looks through the subjects of his ridicule and digs out the rawest, most vulnerable flaws. He knows how to humiliate, how to make his words hurt, and his words are always shaped with a condescending smile. Being Vox's foil highlights where these two characters draw their power from. Vox's power stems from his determination to cover up his lack of self-confidence. Alastor's power stems from his true self-confidence. He thinks he is powerful because he is, and because everyone would agree, and he can prove it, although he doesn't even need to. This makes for a character whose influence over the story is well respected by the audience. I don't think anyone watching the show doubts that if Alastor wanted to blow up heaven with a snap of his fingers, he could. A conflict with our protagonist pitched against Alastor inherently has dramatically high stakes simply by virtue of his presence. Hazbin Hotel has a tendency to tell instead of show, but with Alastor we get both to contextualize the extent of his power. It's this which helps the audience trust that Alastor is a main player on Hell's stage, so we watch his actions with anticipation. But it is very hard to predict what his intentions are as he schemes. I do want to leave room here for Alastor's true motivations coming to light in season 3. As the show exists now, however, Alastor's motivations are so unclear, and with so many unresolved plot threads, I would say wildly inconsistent. It's my personal feeling that the writers struggle with making Alastor both conniving and crazy. In some moments, he appears to be a genius who can easily anticipate his enemy's next moves and plan ahead in great detail. The deals that he strikes seems to be largely made for his security. He wants to be well connected and well prepared in case of situations where he would otherwise be caught with no backup plan. He treats people as resources, and while he doesn't have much empathy, he has a cold, clinical understanding of how to manipulate others that are more emotional than he is. But in other moments, he appears to be a whimsical, unhinged sociopath who does whatever he wants for no particular reason other than the vibe of the moment. He doesn't seem to have a grand design, no specific goals that he's working towards. He lusts to maintain his status, but what good is that status if he doesn't use it to execute over the sinners of Hell to achieve something greater? He wished to be the most powerful sinner in Hell, but why? For shits and giggles? To protect his own ego, which we know is not fragile? Could it be that he, like Vox, wanted to become too powerful to hurt? His desire to sit on a throne above all others, it's unclear where this desire comes from and to what end. Again, I do want to leave space for this to be clarified in season 3, where it could easily be resolved. I'm not too worried about Alastor becoming too passive in the narrative when it's all but confirmed he's going to be the main antagonist in season 3. Which is awesome. But evaluating seasons 1 and 2 as completed segments of the story currently, Alastor walks a contradictory line of serving both an active and passive role in the plot. Take his relationship with the hotel. Why is he there? In the YouTube pilot, he's asked to provide an explanation.
Why does anyone do anything? Sheer, absolute boredom!
So he's here to sort of observe from the background how Charlie's idea will pan out. He's not specifically invested in the success of the hotel. He just wants to enjoy watching this weird thing that he's sure is going to backfire. No.
You are welcome if you actually want to give redemption a shot.
He's specifically invested in the success of the hotel, seeing as he doesn't support sinners staying there if they're not serious about being redeemed. So he's joined the hotel because he wants to support investigating if sinners can be redeemed. Wrong.
I know you're here, Alastor. Could you help out, please?
Oh, this seems like a you problem, Vaggie.
And you, really? What happened to the whole host of the hotel thing?
Alastor, shouldn't you help her?
Should I? Perhaps. Will I? No. Do I enjoy being difficult? Most definitely.
He actually doesn't give a fuck about the hotel's success, I guess, so we're back at him just being there because he finds it entertaining.
But I've been running all over Hell on some fruitless crusade for years, playing nice at a stupid hotel because you promised me power.
Wrong again. He thinks that the hotel is stupid, actually, and is there against his will, and that line, Playing nice at a stupid hotel because you promised me power implies that he's only there because Rosie has forced him to be. But wait, Alastor does actually want to be there despite the fact that he talks and acts like he doesn't want to be there. In the season 2 finale, we see Alastor return to the Hazbin Hotel willingly. He's been freed from his deal with Rosie, yet he continues to choose to monitor the progress of the hotel. Why? Well, it could be that he has found something valuable in the connections he's made at the hotel.
She's filled with potential that I could guide.
Okay, at last we have found Alastor's character motivation. He wants to prove his usefulness to Charlie so that she keeps him around so that he can use her. Wait, just kidding.
It seems he has found something else to entertain him here.
It's Lucifer, actually. He wants to stay at the hotel to get close to Charlie, to get close to Lucifer, I think. I don't know anymore. Look, we don't need to be spoiled about Alastor's secret plot to become God for his motivation to be coherent. The problem is that he doesn't have one. Alastor's writing would benefit from a consistent motivation such that his actions don't contradict each other. This would make his characterization as a conniving genius a lot stronger and would save us, the audience, from having to fill this plot hole with our headcanons. But I do feel some of this confusion is caused by the audience still not knowing what deal Alastor originally struck with Rosie. And Rosie has been an interesting ball out of left field, hasn't she? On a surface level, I like her relationship with Alastor. It's fun that they have a playful mutual respect with an undercurrent of distrust. It's a great push and pull and adds for a really interesting dynamic to their conversations. I think it's cute that the menacing radio demon is the begrudging lapdog of a little lady with good manners. But what absolutely cannot be ignored is the racial overtone of their relationship and the absolute clusterfuck of questionable themes that have come from Alastor being revealed to be half black. Rosie is a white woman who owns Alastor, a black man. She makes him into her pet, her dog, an animal trapped in her cage. This is insanely racist and rooted in the real American history of black slavery and black people being made into dangerous wild zoo animals to be controlled and caged and put on leashes. The real history of violence against black men justified by painting them as an imaginary threat to the innocence of white women. This, on paper, is a really interesting relationship to explore. What if Rosie was the stereotypical purity symbol of a sweet blonde Southern belle presenting herself to society with a kind of racist false kindness? The narrative twist, Alastor invites himself into slavery, and his summoning of Rosie is him allowing her to own him, to inch closer to her power. What if the permanent smile he wears in the afterlife was Rosie's doing? Something she's done to mock him, to make him helpless, to force him to enjoy being her pet. Alastor freeing himself from his chains is much more satisfying, feels much more like a win when we think of Rosie as a sadistic, dehumanizing slave owner. But let's think about this for one goddamn second, y'all. This is Vivzie Pop's design for her black slave from 1930s New Orleans. She has not put much thought into incorporating Alastor's background into his appearance, dress, mannerisms, accent, or even his perception of class and authority. She has literally said that her characters' ethnicities don't have a lot to do with their stories.
The ethnicities of the characters don't really have a whole lot to do with their story, though.
Vivian Medrano, your character's heritage might be something you want to consider when you write a story about them being a slave. This is a big problem with Vivian's characters that I will definitely be bringing up again later. She applies real world cultures to her characters for their aesthetics with little nuance without taking into account just how much a character's upbringing impacts the person they become. Vivian wants a half Creole practitioner of Louisiana voodoo because she likes the aesthetic of Dr. Facilier from The Princess and the Frog. But she does not want to do the work or research of how this choice of hers would mean that Alastor probably has very complicated feelings about his relationship with Rosie. Would probably mean that Alastor has interesting thoughts on how his religion, being heavily demonized during the time period that he's from, has nothing to do with himself being a terrible person. Would probably mean that he would not use a pentagram, a symbol of Satanism, a different religion,
amongst the highest demons,
when attempting to commune with a demon in hell. Alastor is so poorly written that he exists in a state in which his magic demon powers stem from a religion he doesn't seem to practice or care about, and his status as a slave to a white woman is completely unaddressed by the narrative to being connected to his identity as a half Creole from a time period in which he definitely would have experienced aggressive racism due to his mixed race and his taboo religion. I'm reading too much from my script, but I would not memorize 15,000 words at gunpoint. This is lazy, unnuanced, bad character exploration, racist, and it is a lost opportunity to write something better. And speaking of inappropriately racialized tropes,
to our interest.
Camilla, what troubles thou?
How? And your little friends.
I
I thought I had made my... Noted. I don't have time with the weapons to defend yourselves.
Not fucking...
Carmilla.
I'm going to make my next critique as gently as I can, because it is more of a pet peeve than a critique, and Vivian is a fellow Hispanic queen. And honestly, it's the fact that Vivian is Hispanic that I'm made more confused by this weird, specific behavior that the Spanish-speaking characters of Hazbin Hotel do.
Cabrón, hijo de perra. Come mierda, malparido, hijo de... Ay, este pendejo.
Te voy a matar, chiquita.
Ay, qué barbaridad.
Ay, ese imbécil piensa que puede poner esa princesa gordísima enfrente de mí.
Hacer cosas para esta mujer.
Ay, ya no puedo con este. Ay, qué estúpido demonio con ese.
Angeinl Dust is Italian. He does not mutter under his breath in Italian. Nifty is Japanese. She does not mutter under her breath in Japanese. No Hispanic person in an English-speaking environment mutters under their breath in Spanish. No normal person does this. This is so funny. I don't have an issue with the character speaking in Spanish. Not at all. When Carmilla describes the extermination as brutal, when Valentino calls Husk gato, I find that these are fun little quips when they're used in a way that flows nicely with the dialogue. Context matters here. But to me, it's very silly that the Hispanic characters in Hazbin Hotel only speak in Spanish when they're walking away from a conversation whispering complaints to themselves. There is no way to tell that these characters are Hispanic without hearing them speak Spanish, because as Vivian said, their heritages aren't important to them. So I get the impression that this is the only way to acknowledge their heritage, by shoehorning in a barely audible mumbled line in which they curse out the person that they were just talking to. Please, please, please stop playing Spanish guitar.mp3 and maracas.mp3 every time Carmilla shows up on screen. It's so funny. Remember, she already mumbles in Spanish under her breath. We don't need maracas to know that she's okay, mami, pégame con tu chancleta, por favor. I wouldn't call this racist, but it's racialized. Imagine if my show, every time I cut to a Chinese character, I play a gong sound effect. It's just weird. It's giving how some filmmakers will put yellow color grading over shots filmed in Mexico. Valentino being from Florida is deeply funny to me specifically. He is the Caribbean from Miami representation that I've never wanted. Mr. 305, Mr. Worldwide. What were we talking about? Vaggie. Vaggie has had her own history of controversy. In the YouTube pilot of Hazbin Hotel, her personality was a lot more aggressive and bossy. I remember this being criticized by viewers as playing into the negative stereotype of Latina women being angry, sassy, and short. Me personally, I wasn't offended by this portrayal because Vivian doesn't write her characters as heritages as impacting their personhood. Alastor's personality design was not through the lens of his Creole background, so I don't think Vaggie was written through the lens of her Ecuadorian background. And if Vaggie was written as an angry, sassy, short Latina because she is Latina, then her identity as a Latina isn't to expand her character depth. It is just to play into Western stereotypes of her culture. Vaggie as a character is fairly bland. She can have no character arc in this story because she has no flaws to overcome. The reveal that she is a fallen angel adds new interesting context for how she acts within her relationships, but falling is something that happened to Vaggie. It's not something she had agency in. While it was her choice to spare the life of a demon during an extermination, it wasn't her choice to become a sinner, so she has no real conflict of character to resolve. I think that her possessive and self-sacrificing nature with regard to her partnership makes perfect sense when factoring in her life as an obedient soldier. So I appreciate that the writers of Hazbin considered how being an ex-angel might impact Vaggie's self-worth and patience for disloyalty. But her character is pretty boring and static, and because of her complete lack of bonds with any other person that is not her girlfriend, I struggle to see how the story would be much different if she were removed from it entirely. As a side character with little impact on the story's conflict and plot, Vaggie's role should be to support a character more important than her, but she does not impact the character arc, growth, or development of any other person around her, not even her own girlfriends, because Charlie proves to be extremely resistant to allowing Vaggie to change her mind about anything. Sit down, Charlie, I will lay you across the butcher block in the next section of this video. Vaggie is unsuccessful in helping Charlie change for the better, and that hurts her relevance to the story. While Charlie does come to the conclusion that Vaggie was right about her obsession with Vox being unhealthy throughout season 2, she comes to that conclusion outside of Vaggie's attempts to reason with her. And yet Vaggie embodies the word support, unconditionally devoting her life to helping Charlie fulfill her dreams. Even if she doesn't necessarily believe in redemption, she believes in Charlie.
I just hope what I'm trying to do here will work.
It will. I have faith in you.
She is a soldier, and when given a mission, she will see it through the end, giving it her all. We see her do an incredible job at managing the hotel's employees and putting in the work to promote it.
Don't worry, it'll be back working in a minute.
She is so competent, so good at her job, so mature that it actually casts a negative light on the characters around her that don't share these traits. When Angeinl Dust breaks his promise to play nice while he's staying at the hotel, it's Vaggie who scolds him for hurting their reputation. When Alastor summons a bar in the hotel, it's Vaggie who steps forward to remind the others that this should be a place free from temptation. When Charlie becomes so obsessed with herself that she neglects her management responsibilities, it's Vaggie who chooses to take her place. By being the adult in the room, Vaggie has functionally Mary Sued herself, and nowhere is her maturity more sharply contrasted than when she is performing her second most important job after changing everyone's diapers: dealing with Charlie.
I think this is yours.
Okay, Missy, let's get you to bed.
He said he forgave me.
For this section, I'm going to speak in slow, calm sentences as to rein in the red hot rage that bubbles under my skin when I watch the show and Charlie is in a frame. I included this last sentence in my script as an affirmation to myself. Vaggie has no distinct purpose in this story other than to manage Charlie's emotions.
We'll just handle it, right?
Yes, we will. If you want, I can handle the hotel duties. Talk to those reporters.
It's fine. I'm perfectly calm.
Charlie, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I can't remember how to breathe.
Come on, baby. Let's get inside.
Or to have her perfectly reasonable concerns be brushed off by Charlie.
Yeah, I'm just not sure reaching out to the overlords trying to make you look like a horrible monster is the best idea.
But this changes everything.
Just stay with me today. And the guests, also the guests.
I know, but I feel like if I explain myself... What? How can you even say that? Are you not on my side?
I am, but being on your side means telling you the truth. I am worried about you.
Well, don't be. If you don't care about what I'm trying to do, then I can just do it myself.
Or to be ignored by Charlie.
Look, Charlie, Angeinl is not Pentious, and things have already gotten out of hand today. Just send these assholes home.
He's not Pentious.
Is there anything I can help you with?
I don't think so, Vaggie.
Or to be yelled at by Charlie for shit that was literally not her fault.
But thanks to him, and apparently you, Vox was able to spin it. Again!
Charlie, that's what Vox does. I thought if your dad could at least get him to back down, you'd stop caring.
Well, why didn't you ask me?
Because you aren't listening to me. You're hyper-fixating on what he's saying about you.
Because he's hurting the hotel. He is ruining...
Charlie, you are hurting the hotel.
I cannot describe the immense relief, the satisfaction I felt when Vaggie yells, "You are hurting the hotel." Yes, Vaggie. Thank you again for telling it like it is and being the only person in the show with their head screwed on. Charlie is a terrible partner. She's so unappreciative of Vaggie's unconditional love and doesn't thank her for carrying the functionality of the hotel on her back. Charlie acts like Vaggie getting Lucifer to threaten Vox made Vox more unhinged, when in fact it was Charlie's plan of bringing the angels to Vox, which escalated the situation. I don't think she even says the word sorry to Vaggie after their fight for blaming her. When they do reconcile, Charlie does recognize that she became too obsessed with her public image, but she does not recognize that she also completely and continuously fails to take accountability when her plans make things worse.
And it's hard sometimes to feel like you aren't hearing me. But I just want you to know it's okay. I still love you.
But it's not okay.
Oh, isn't that nice? Charlie insists that it's not okay for her to keep ignoring Vaggie's concerns, and she's probably about to begin formally apologizing for unfairly burdening Vaggie with the hotel responsibilities, while also trying to make her feel guilty for Vox's actions. Just kidding. She's not apologizing.
Look, this hotel was my way of finishing what she started, and I think I've been trying so hard to hold on to it because if I could make it work, maybe she'd be proud of me. And maybe she'd come back and tell me what I did to make her leave. But all I've done is drive everyone away. Pentious, Husk, Alastor, my dad, everybody leaves.
She starts complaining about her feelings without acknowledging Vaggie's. Funny, her dialogue here, and maybe she'd come back and tell me what I did to make her leave. Everybody leaves. It reveals that Charlie thinks there's something fundamentally wrong with who she is that makes the people around her betray her. No, Charlie. You being a bad partner and friend is what causes tension between you and the people that you love. She is so concerned with her own insecurities that she projects them onto others. Charlie has lost people because of circumstances outside of her control, or because of internal issues that those people are struggling with, or because she drives them away with her shitty behavior. There is not a magical bubble around her that she was born with that repels friendship. Again, she is so in her head about this insecurity that she is unable to see the reality of the situation and truly take accountability here. This complex of hers isn't acknowledged by the narrative, and I would like to point out that Charlie doesn't even acknowledge Angeinl Dust in the list of people that she has wronged, which, Lord help me, we will circle back on. So in this scene, Charlie continues catastrophizing and waffling about how miserable she is, and again, she still has not actually resolved the reason why she was fighting with Vaggie in the first place, has not apologized to her, and has not made an effort to understand and listen to what Vaggie is saying about Vox. So Vaggie cuts her off to calm Charlie down like she always has to steer her back onto the conversation topic and communicate.
And now Fox is declaring a war, and Carmilla's right, I started it, and I'm a hypocrite, and my dreams are gonna die. Shut up, you know that I love you.
Just kidding, they sing a song, and they have sex so good that apparently it excuses how Vaggie has to invest way more emotional labor to keep their relationship stable than Charlie does. Fuck! And the show acts like this is a genuine resolution to their communication issues. It sucks. This is so unserious. What's also weird about this fight between Vaggie and Charlie is that Charlie's characterization is different across the seasons of Hazbin Hotel. In the YouTube pilot, Charlie is generally timid and avoids confrontation. She allows Vaggie to be the bad cop. In season 1, we can directly compare the Vox argument to the very first on-screen argument they have when Charlie finds out that Vaggie was hiding her past as an exterminator angel. In episode 7 of season 1, we see Charlie very clearly and understandably upset with Vaggie for lying. She expresses that she doesn't know that she can trust Vaggie would share important information about the angels willingly or otherwise. She's hurt that her partner would lie to her for so long, and hurt that her partner once was on the side of the enemy. But here's a key difference. Charlie is also open to speaking with Vaggie. She does not condescend her or become over-emotional. She still works with Vaggie and trusts her with the task of speaking to Carmilla about obtaining weaponry that can kill the angels. Where the fuck did this maturity go in season 2 when she fights with Vaggie again about a much less serious issue?
Maybe you should ask Little Miss Can't Pick a fucking name. She's the one running the place.
Well, I don't really want to speak to her right now. Besides, she's perfectly fine doing whatever she wants behind my back.
Well, Husk, if you see Charlie, can you let her know I've been doing everything around the hotel already, so it's not like it'll make a difference.
Well, Husk, if you see Vaggie, can you explain that hotel duties don't include inciting a war?
Why is she so fucking petty now? Charlie's character has suffered from flanderization. Her trait of being hyper-emotional has been exaggerated to the extent that she is infantilized and uncharacteristically sabotaging her own relationships. This is so frustrating. And that's the thing about Charlie to me. Watching her make bad decisions is so frustrating. It makes her unlikable. This is a difficult trait to pull off with a main protagonist because Charlie is our point of view character. We are stuck with her if we want to watch the story unfold. We should want to be on Team Charlie. We should want the Hazbin Hotel to work and for her dreams to be fulfilled because she's the main protagonist and her goals drive the narrative. But Charlie makes decisions that work against her own interests and pushes away friends who are like-minded and are just trying to help her succeed. It's so infuriating to watch her fail because of her own petty, self-absorbed, and irrational behaviors. And I find myself wanting her to fail in the hopes that she will realize that these behaviors are what got her here. I want her to fail so that she can change for the better. Charlie also hardly serves her function as a point of view character. Typically, these characters are really important for stories with heavy world building. The audience would need a guide to take our hand and gradually introduce us to their foreign world. But Charlie's not a guide for a couple of reasons. One, the world building of Hazbin Hotel is implied to be complex, but in reality, there's a low barrier of entry for people who want to watch the show casually. We don't need to know about the rings of hell to understand the world. Secondly, Charlie knows more than we do. There's a lot unsaid about Lilith and Lucifer that we should know, being in Charlie's head as we are, but we don't. Thirdly, Charlie doesn't even seem to belong to hell herself. Her personality, the way that she is, makes no sense given her heritage, poor research and consistency, and she gives us a skewed understanding of what it's like to be a sinner in hell. She's as much of a foreigner to this story as we are. This isn't a critique, just an observation. Plenty of stories have an outsider as their main protagonist. Charlie is excessively bubbly, empathetic, emotional, and hopeful. Girl, Where in the 7 rings of hell do these traits come from? I can see her volatile emotionality coming from her father. Evidently, Lucifer likes to ignore his depression in favor of filling the void with rubber ducks. Like, we get it. He likes ducks. Does he have anything else going on besides the duck thing? Like, he's supposed to be the Lucifer, the first angel that fell from heaven. I just thought he'd have somewhere going on with him. I don't know. But Charlie's hope, her belief in innate goodness within every person, this is certainly not something that she learned from Lucifer, a hands-off king who could not care less about the happiness of his subjects. She could have learned it from Lilith, we're not sure, but Lilith is a lot more comfortable with violence than Charlie is. She tried to lead a rebellion against heaven. And every time we catch glimpses of her reaction to the rising tensions between heaven and hell, she's calm, nonchalant, on a beach, drinking from a coconut with a straw and a paper umbrella. So I'm not convinced that Lilith would have provided the wholesome, unrealistic morals that Charlie has adopted. Growing up in literal hell should have long destroyed Charlie's worldview that sinners are just good little eggs whose flaws can be fixed, whose evils can be cured. It just doesn't quite make sense, does it? Additionally, isn't Charlie supposed to be the princess of hell? A red carpet should be rolled out before her everywhere she walks, but this isn't the case. Throughout the entire show, Charlie is disrespected by commoner sinners.
Hi, I'm Charlie. Look, my time is money, so I'll keep this short. You're not here because we wanted you here. You might be some royal big shot, but that doesn't mean shit to me. I'm too rich and too influential to give a flying fuck about what some tuck-swearing demon princess wants to advertise.
Why does Charlie even need to introduce herself to Katie Killjoy? Why make Charlie the princess of hell or Lucifer the king of hell if their royal status has zero impact on their magical powers, political influence, or personal connections? What a waste. As the main character and princess of her land, Charlie should be in the center of a spiderweb of plot, and her choices should have massive, impactful consequences across the conflicts and the character cast. She's supposed to be important, but her lack of social power makes her completely at the whims of the Vees and of Alastor. The stakes of the conflicts that she experiences in the show are all made unclear because they are overshadowed by unanswered questions like, why doesn't Charlie solve this problem with all of her royal money? Why doesn't Charlie solve this problem with all of her royal authority? Why doesn't Charlie solve this problem by asking for help from the first fallen angel who's also the king of hell? It's like Charlie was never meant to be a princess or even from the culture of hell, and titles like princess and demon were just tacked on after writing the story of Hazbin. It's not a writing flaw that Charlie has no social authority. It's the fact that her title would imply social authority. I wish we were given an explanation for this. For example, what if after Lilith's disappearance, we were shown that the significance of the monarchy in hell left with her? What if Charlie's developmental years were spent contending over losing her pre-existing authority? But this plot hole is not addressed in canon. It's really confusing. I think this would all make much more sense if Charlie was just an angel. Now there's an idea. Imagine this alternate story concept. Charlie is a naive angel who's bad at her job and not taken seriously by her peers. She is given the busy work, doomed to fail task of going down to hell and seeing if there is a way to redeem sinners to the light of heaven. Charlie has a very narrow and unchallenged view of good versus evil, just as she does in Hazbin Hotel. Then over the course of the show, she makes new friends like Angeinl Dust, Husk, Cherry Bomb, Sir Pentious, and her future partner Vaggie. She learns that whatever omniscient judge decides the goodness of a human soul is flawed, because not everyone who ends up in hell is evil, and not everyone who is evil ends up in hell. Charlie learns to stop judging others through the myopic lens of her own experiences. She takes her friends' personal struggles seriously and respects the decisions that brought them to hell, even if she personally thinks that these choices were wrong, because she understands now that no two people have the same life experiences, which brings them to the same moral code. In this version of Charlie's backstory, no sinners are redeemed, and her friends do not need to ascend to heaven to prove their value as people. In truth, Hazbin Hotel is confusingly uninterested in exploring the nuances of morality, and for a show literally about the concept of morality, it is a lost opportunity to write something better. We will be discussing in great length Hazbin's failure to engage with morality towards the end of this video. But as a tool used in analyzing Charlie's character, the vague and underdeveloped set of moral principles that Hazbin Hotel operates on frequently causes Charlie to look like a massive fucking dickhead.
Isn't there a more humane way to hinder overpopulation here in hell? Perhaps we can create an alternative way to change souls through redemption?
I understand that the premise of the show, you know, the fucking hotel, needs to be justified by the narrative, and the writers have done that by having Charlie make the hotel a space where sinners can make up for the evils that they committed during life. But as the princess of hell, and a true lover and believer of her people, Why does Charlie blame the sinners for being the way that they are and not the angels for committing genocide? And I cannot stress this enough, the problem is not that hell is overpopulated. This is disproven within the opening cinematic of the first fucking episode.
But Lilith thrived, empowering demonkind with her voice and her songs, and as the numbers of hell grew, so did its power. Threatened by this, heaven made a truly heartless decision. That every year they would send down an army, an extermination, to ensure hell and its sinners could never rise against them.
Sure, more sinners means that hell outnumbers heaven, but the exterminations began to dehumanize sinners, to brutalize them into fearing heaven so that they would not rebel.
Just over 7 years ago, Lilith had a dream. With her song, she rallied the sinners of hell to attack heaven in an effort to liberate us.
And sure, helping sinners ascend to heaven would save them from being murdered, but isn't that the fault of the murderers? Just listen how Charlie talks about the sinners.
If I can show them the dream I've dreamed, that any soul can change.
Those angels' minds are hard to change.
Everyone can be redeemed from the evil to the strength.
They're bloodthirsty and deranged.
Charlie loves her people for their flaws, but also wants them to change. Vaggie even cuts her off to point out that the angels are the ones committing violence and are unwilling to seek a reasonable solution to the tensions between heaven and hell. Which side is supposed to be evil again? Charlie contradicts herself again when meeting with Adam.
But these are souls. Human souls, just the same as the ones you have up in heaven.
They are not the same. They had their chance and they earned damnation.
You're wrong. Sinners made mistakes, sure, but everyone makes mistakes.
So Charlie, you do understand that not everyone in hell is there because they're a bad person or because they need to be redeemed. So why are you operating the Hazbin Hotel? She should be challenging the angels, challenging heaven institutionally or diplomatically, which Charlie is suited for because she is the princess of all of hell. Instead, she begs for their endorsement of the hotel and concedes that sinners are the ones who need to change to appease the angels and hope that they stop the exterminations out of the goodness of their hearts.
I thought what I was doing was right for our people. But now I'm faced with knowing it was all. That this whole time, those souls could, with more faith in them, be good, be changed. How can I know who to judge when so many that might have been saved have been slain because of me?
No, Sarah! The lives of these sinners were still valuable before you knew they could ascend to heaven. It's not right to kill them indiscriminately, even if sinners can't be redeemed. Genocide is bad!
No, wait. No, wait, you are apologizing for genocide with gift baskets?
They have assorted taffies in them. Like, really good taffies.
Oh, you hear that, folks? These angels think our lives are worth really good taffies. That's what a sinner's soul is worth to heaven.
Yes! Facts, Vox! Charlie, why are you accepting gift baskets as an apology for genocide? And the situation is not that Charlie is too timid to stand up to heaven, so in her cowardice, she wants to see if redemption will keep sinners safe. She believes that sinners need to change, and I think she would support attempting redeeming sinners, even if there were no exterminations taking place. She uses the people at the hotel to prove this theory to herself. The hotel is a vanity project. When push comes to shove, and when given the choice between defending her citizens or kissing the collective ass of heaven, we see where Charlie's priorities lie.
Charlie, why are they here? You're aware those two crazy fucks hang out with my ship-fuck boss, Valentino, and a part of the Vees? And you still let them in here? Charlie, listen to me. I don't know what they promised you, but I'm telling you right now, they are bad fucking news. Horrible fucking news!
Okay, I've talked to Vox, and he assured me that he's just here to film the hotel and put out a special tonight about what he sees here, on the small, tiny, teensy condition that we, redeem someone. Yeah, now that's where you come in, Angel.
What?
You've really done it now, princess.
Charlie! We don't even know how Pentious got redeemed. How do you expect us to replicate that on TV?
And I ain't being your little guinea pig.
Charlie cannot stop deflecting criticism. She pushes the fuck out of Angeinl Dust's boundaries, even when everyone else around her is telling her that what she's doing is wrong. Husk changes his mind for some reason. Despite condemning Charlie in the clip, he ends up encouraging Angeinl Dust to give redemption a shot. I think this is out of character for Husk because he's shown to accept Angeinl Dust for his flaws, but it could just be the the husk believes in Angel Dust's capacity to take control of his life. Tangent aside, Charlie does not care about how Angel Dust feels about redemption. She spends the entirety of episode 3, season 2, guilting and emotionally manipulating Angel into making him do something that he clearly does not want to do for her own personal gain. Can she seriously not accept Angel Dust for the person that he is? Can she not accept that Angel Dust can be a drug addict, a victim of sexual abuse, and a good person worthy of heaven? How does she not see that the process by which souls are assigned to heaven or hell is a flawed and unjust process? Why does she blame him and think of him as a tool to prove that her hotel works instead of genuinely supporting his trauma recovery? Charlie's so fucking hypocritical. She sucks. What's the resolution for this conflict, by the way? There is none. Seriously. Charlie never makes it up to Angel Dust. She gets away with this.
Don't force him back. Just make sure he's safe. I pushed too hard earlier, and I only made things worse.
So now you can identify when you're pushing Angel Dust's boundaries, but only after he gets mad at you for it?
Angel, I'm so sorry. Can we please talk?
You know, sorry starts to lose meaning after a while, Charlie. Why don't you go ask Fox the next time you need to pry out more shit about my life?
Angel, I didn't realize. I didn't.
Stop fucking deflecting!
Charlie, just stop!
Angel, what are you talking about?
Charlie, leave!
But
I didn't want you to come here. I already asked you to leave and you didn't listen. You made things worse.
I just wanted to help you.
Well, you ain't.
There she goes again. I hate her so bad. I hate that in order to enjoy the show, I need to support the premise of the hotel. No, I want Charlie to eat shit. This sucks so fucking bad to watch. I need her to be a better person, but she shows no signs of fully acknowledging how she's hurting the people around her, especially Vaggie and especially Angel Dust. And Vivian, if you're out there, queen, hold my hand. We're really in the shitter now because we need to talk about Angel Dust.
Oh, please, baby. This body was made to be exploited.
This afternoon sun, what a beautiful glow. I have something controversial to say. Angel Dust is a woman. Just hear me out. He is written as if he were a woman, but Angel has to be a man because in my opinion, his character would not exist as it does if he were a woman. Before I elaborate, this section heavily discusses sexual abuse, so skip to the timestamp on the screen if you don't want to hear any of that. This section was upsetting for me to even write and definitely record, so I'll leave a TLDR in the description if you just want a lighter version of it. Angel's character is written to be extremely feminine, and I'm not saying that because he wears pink or because he's a bottom. It's because he's a victim. He is a sex slave forced into submission, forcibly feminized under the thumb of his male abuser. His whole story is centered around trauma from the sexual and physical abuse he has endured. I would often wince and cringe away during scenes in Hazbin Hotel when Angel Dust is being abused, and that's partly because I am a woman. This is gonna get upsetting. I love this show. And this hits close to home to what I think is an obvious point of fear for a lot of people like me, women or not, who are vulnerable to sexual abuse. I am a woman, so of course I am very familiar with being preyed on, harassed, and humiliated by men. I'm not a survivor of assault, but it's one of my greatest fears to be forced to give up my bodily autonomy. It's very upsetting to watch Angel being tortured and beaten because this is disturbingly reality. I think everyone watching can understand that, which is why I have a really hard time understanding why the writers of Hazbin Hotel think that this is funny.
And Valentino, you cannot keep hitting Angel Dust in public. It's no, it's not funny anymore.
When have I ever hit him?
Except it's not that hard to understand, is it? It's just hard to empathize with how our society has accepted that violence against men is funny. I say Angel Dust is a woman because his story embodies feminine tropes and existential struggles of autonomy unique to womanhood. But Angel Dust does not need to shoulder the full weight of the reality of sexual abuse because for every time his abuse is taken seriously,
you know she can't do anything. I own you, or have you forgotten that?
it's also played for laughs.
Coked up dick sucking hoe?
We find this excusable because he is a man. And Hazbin Hotel thinks that violence against men isn't as serious as violence against women. If Angeinl Dust were a woman, I don't think her abuse would be as explicit as it is, and I don't think the seriousness of that abuse would be lightened with a compilation of her being slapped by her abuser. Because a woman who is hypersexualized by her society because of her body, a woman who is a slave to a pimp who literally calls her his property, is too real, too dark for a show as unserious as Hazbin Hotel. And it is not funny. Angeinl Dust has to be a man, because if he wasn't, Hazbin wouldn't be able to get away with how often they disrespect his trauma. And this leads me to what I think is the most offensive portrayal of Angeinl Dust's victimhood: poison.
'Cause I know you're poison, you're feeding me poison, addicted to this feeling I can't help but swallow.
I'll be brief on this subject because there's a video called How Not to Write a Victim of Abuse by Limus. And this video already does a great job of explaining thoughts that I share. Please give it a watch. The link is in the description. I get what Poison is doing. Angeinl Dust is embracing the high glamour and aestheticism of his lifestyle as a star because enjoying it is the only way he can grasp back control in a situation where he otherwise has zero control. This is a smart evaluation of how someone like him might learn how to survive his circumstances. But the music video, I don't even feel comfortable cutting away to clips of it. It's of Angeinl Dust being tied, gagged, blinded, beat, forced to film. It's horrible. And the weight of it, the serious reality of his pain and dehumanization, is absolutely shattered with a high energy pop beat, and Angeinl Dust is doing a trendy TikTok ready choreographed dance in front of a bunch of screens which flash with images of him being Angeinl Dust is being commodified into a toy, which is the point of the song, to point out how Angeinl Dust submits himself to his own commodification because he doesn't have the choice to reject it. And here comes Hazbin Hotel selling a pop track about an abuse victim, selling an EDM remix, selling merch of him naked on the pole from the music video. Is this a fucking joke? Considering how thoughtlessly Alastor's trauma is explored, I seriously don't think that this is intentional commentary. And if it is, this is taking Angeinl's objectification way too far. It's as if the show is mocking him. Stop for a moment and think, do you seriously think that the music video and promotion surrounding Poison would have been appropriate if Angeinl Dust were a woman? In her video, Limus also explains how upsetting it is for a person who is a survivor of sexual assault to watch that reality be turned into a product. I encourage you again to watch her video because I think what she has to say about the subject of abuse and its portrayal in Hazbin Hotel is really important to understand. And if you're a survivor who feels empowered by Poison, I mean it when I say I'm happy for you. I'm really glad you feel seen. But this other side of the coin, I think it needs to be understood. Sorry, I'm just imagining a very terrible universe in which Astarion from Baldur's Gate 3 is shown to be tortured by his slave master, Cazador, and then when Cazador leaves him to rot, Astarion just bursts into song. And the music videos of him in pretty clothes and nice makeup seducing men in a pub, and then it cuts to him doing a trendy dance punctuated by shots of him being several times. Jesus. In poor taste is an understatement. This is free advertisement for Baldur's Gate 3, by the way. Go play that game if you want to see an abuse story being given all the respect and dignity that it deserves. Hazbin Hotel's mockery of Angeinl Dust doesn't seem to relent. As we know, Season 2, Episode 3 is solely dedicated to Charlie forcing Angeinl to perform against his will so that she can get something out of him. Angeinl can't even be a part of the plot to stop Vox at the end of Season 2 because he's too busy being tortured and mind-controlled and it's like, fuck, I get it. He has no autonomy. My fucking God, not once do we see Angeinl win. When Vox is beating him, he gives up on fighting back and submits to it because he knows it's easier to wait until the pain stops than to try to make it stop.
You stubborn fucking whore. More trouble than you're worth. Sure glad I found a use for you.
When he's drugged and in possession of Valentino, he makes no moves to even attempt a feeble escape.
Fuck. Angie.
When he starts choking his best friend, hearing her pained voice doesn't snap him out of it. It takes Husk punching him to save him.
Not the time for the power of friendship. Ow! Oh, what the fuck?
When he's freed, he finds himself too broken to be worthy of his friends' trust.
You're not safe around me.
Oh, that's bullshit. Come on, Angel. We can help you.
No, you can't. This whole time, I thought I had a choice. What a fucking joke. The last choice I ever got to make was when I signed my soul away.
Angel, Please, don't.
I'm sorry. Just do me a favor and forget you ever knew me.
Fucking hell, I get it. We get it. Angel Dust is sad and pathetic and helpless and has no sense of self-preservation or a will to live. Jesus fucking Christ. This is torture. This is a sexualized obsession with making Angel Dust into a being of suffering, a being who is so thoroughly under the ownership of the powerful men around him that he has never made a choice for himself and never made a decision to better himself that he wasn't pressured into doing. Never believed that he can be saved, much less save himself. Imagine if he was a fucking woman. Angel Dust's character arc might be the biggest crime the Hazbin Hotel will ever commit. I am genuinely worried for season 3. The jury is still out on whether or not the writers will take the time to have a complete, on-screen, well-researched resolution to the sexual violence that they have put Angel Dust through. And given previous attempts at this, I'm not too confident.
When you see her, can you ask her if she's still up for the therapy session today? I'm kind of getting into talking about feelings and junk.
What in the bullshit shoehorned off-screen character development with Charlie as his therapist? Fuck off. If he does not have a half second of a break in which he chooses something for his own betterment, I would argue that a character whose identity is suffering does not make for an interesting, well-written, dynamic protagonist. Something I do find interesting is how Angel Dust often sexualizes himself. As we see in the lyrics of Poison, this is again a way for Angel Dust to grasp at some semblance of control over his autonomy. He has been so heavily sexualized that his sex appeal is a core part of how he identifies himself. One of my favorite scenes with Angel is when he's coming onto Husk.
I bet I can make those wings flap.
Stop! Fucking Christ! You can cut the act already. It's never gonna work on me, so all you're doing is making an ass out of yourself with this fake bullshit.
Call me fake one more time, motherfucker! I dare you.
It's fake.
Fucking asshole! Oh, God.
You done?
You know what? You would be fucking lucky to get a chance to fuck me. You know how much I'm worth? You know how many people would kill to have Angel Dust come on to them? Fuck you.
This is fantastic, really strong, subtle characterization of Angel Dust. This takes place after another night suffering Valentino's abuse. Despite feeling like shit, you physically see Angel Dust puff out his chest, mentally reset, and then fall into his protective shell, his overly sexual persona. It's not who he really is, it's not who he wants to be, but it's who he needs to be while he's under the ownership of Valentino. And because he uses this mask to protect himself from the pain of his abuse, he is extremely defensive of it, to the point of inexplicably blowing up in Husk's face. Only by completely throwing himself into his life of sex and violence can he claim some fucked up ownership of it. It allows him to escape the reality of his chains so he doesn't have to think about how much it hurts. And maybe if Angel Dust can ruin himself enough in the process, if he ends up broken, he won't be Valentino's favorite toy anymore. This was going to be my analysis of this well-written conversation between Angel and Husk because I love how it shows Angel's defensive mechanism without spelling out what his complex is with this persona. But Hazbin likes to tell, not show. So Angel Dust says all of this a couple minutes later anyway.
A place where I can get high and not have to think about how much it hurts. And maybe if I can ruin myself enough in the process, if I end up broken, I won't be his favorite toy anymore.
Regardless, I love the friendship between Angel Dust and Husk. Husk is one of the only people that accepts Angel Dust for who he truly is outside of his sex work, warts and all, and Husk wants what's actually best for Angel, which is whatever Angel wants for himself. Cherry Bomb loves Angel and is a loyal friend to him, but enables his harmful habits and teases him in an isolating way when he tries to stay clean. Charlie obviously cares about Angel's well-being, but doesn't care about putting his needs before her wants. We see this in the many times she oversteps his boundaries and tries to force him into being someone she considers redeemable. Husk, however, accepts Angel's sins and supports his journey recovering from his addictions. In turn, Angel gives Husk a reason to keep his head on straight, a friend to live for. They give each other solidarity, companionship, and bring out the best in each other. It's cute that Husk has feelings for Angel, but me personally, I hope the relationship stays platonic. Angel doesn't have any other friendships quite like this, and I think his recovery arc would really benefit from him having a confidant outside of the realm of sexual attraction. Against my better judgment, I will hold out hope for season 3. For his arc to be satisfying, for it to have a second dimension of recovery with the first dimension of pain, we need Angel Dust to win. I want him to find passions outside of his contract work. I want him to play an active role in building a safe space and a support network where he can forge a new identity of his choosing. I want him to murder Valentino. The writers of the show have an enormous responsibility to their audience to treat Angeinl Dust's recovery story with dignity. And if they fail, it would have been a tragically lost opportunity to write something so important better. That was really heavy. I think we need a palate cleanser. Fine, let's talk about this fucking thing.
And I'm a good boy now.
I'm gonna be so real with y'all. If you're a Sir Pentious stan, skip this section because I'm not holding back. I am a Pentious hater. He's like Baby Yoda to me. I feel like I'm being forced to like him because he's got cringe riz and long hair and a stupid tiny Twinkie waist, and every 5 minutes in season 2 he's giving the camera puppy eyes.
Since you can't see your friends.
I love them! Trust me, I brought cookies!
I don't think he's cute. Stop trying to convince me that he's cute. I'm shocked the official Hazbin merch store isn't selling like K-pop bias Alibaba plushies of him. Hey, baby girl. You want to be a YouTuber? His character gives nothing, so there's little analysis to be done as to how well written it is. His story function is to prove that redemption is possible for sinners, but this is not the smoking gun that you think it is. Charlie's biggest concern throughout the show is to prove that her hotel works, and she does, but when the time comes for her to use this tool to stop Vox, Sir Pentious is literally late to the party. He was unable to live stream himself from heaven for it to matter. He outright admits that proving his existence as a redeemed soul to the sinners of hell was useless in the end. So there is zero purpose for his character role throughout season 2. His presence in the main cast of season 2 really feels like fan service because any attempt on his part to influence the plot doesn't work. I relent that Sir Pentious's redemption and ascension into heaven significantly changes heaven's feelings about their genocide against hell because of Sarah's fucked up belief that mass murdering sinners was justifiable until she discovered that they could appear in heaven. I'd argue that Pentious does not have to take up as much space in the story as he does for him to serve the purpose of changing the angels' minds. All that we need to happen is for him to show up into heaven and to be observed by the angels. But I can see why the writers would want to further develop a character whose story of redemption is supposed to be invested in by the audience. Although he's not developed, he has no real character arc. Pentious falls in love with Cherry Bomb and dies defending her. He ascends to heaven and suddenly he's a flanderized, infantilized version of the guy who, you know, just a couple of episodes ago was killing people in a greedy grab for territory. I think it's reductive that he comes to heaven and suddenly he's making friendship bracelets with Emily and baking cookies. Him developing feelings for Cherry doesn't mean that he's not still a violent, power-hungry murderer. Does he not need to redeem himself for those sins? Like Charlie.
He was also a kind and compassionate individual. Someone who made mistakes, yes, but someone who did everything he could to fix them.
Everything he could do to fix them? I don't know how true that is. Anyway, apparently the writers think that his non-existent personality is so vital to the cast dynamic that they make a clone of him in Baxter, who is also a waste of screen time.
Pentious was an inventor. That's so cool. I bet you're just like him.
If you're referring to that pompous snake, I'd like it known I am nothing like him.
Hey, everyone, meet Pentious.
Baxter.
Right, Baxter.
So is he like the new Pentious?
No. Yes, he is. The episode is literally called New Pentious. Baxter's only purpose is to hack into Vox Tech and broadcast Sir Pentious to the other sinners, but he is unsuccessful in doing so. He does not support any character and he does not serve the plot in any way. So why do we have two Sir Pentiouses with so much screen time dedicated to both of them when the first one becomes insignificant over the course of season 2 and the first one can be cut from the plot entirely without consequence? In fact, Baxter is so useless in season 2, has so much nothing to do that we only see him as a device to learn about Sir Pentious's backstory. And he helps Nifty make a bug band, I guess. God bless you, Nifty. You're the best thing about this show. Or you were until...
You hit like a girl.
My next point was mentioned in my brainstorming of an alternate storyline for Charlie. I don't like what Sir Pentious' ascension means for Hazbin Hotel's perception of morality. Firstly, I don't personally think Sir Pentious deserves eternal damnation for witnessing a murder and not reporting it, but the show certainly thinks so. Pay attention to the tone of this reveal.
I carried that guilt to my grave, and I ended up in hell. And I deserved it.
So, why are you here now, my child?
I don't know. My friends were in danger. Cherry was in danger. I had to do something this time.
I would do something.
The tone is serious, grim, profound. We're led to believe that Pentious deserved hell for this, but, and I said this before, doesn't he also need to atone for his turf war shenanigans? The show has decided that those actions are not worthy of hell, but allowing a murder to carry out is. Secondly, this is a piece of the larger truth of what Hazbin Hotel thinks of good and bad people, because despite the show framing Sir Pentious' sin as damnable, he is still one of the good guys. And in Hazbin Hotel, although everyone in hell has committed sin, our protagonists can do no wrong. What rules can one follow to ensure that their soul is primed for heaven when they die? Hazbin Hotel actually has a couple of answers to this.
The first step to becoming a better person is to admit when you are wrong.
Step one, very first step, take responsibility for your mistakes. Charlie, you might want to take a page out of your own book there. Okay, what else?
The only cool thing here is to say no to now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to not have sexual intercourse before marriage. Yes!
Okay, no and no premarital sex. Charlie, you might want to take a second page out of that book. I know what you and Vaggie get up to, you dirty sinner. Well, okay, are there any other rules?
Step 2, bid the booze adieu.
Hey.
A sober mind's primed for absolution. Step 3, dignity. Try dressing more modestly.
No drinking either, and I would love to know what Charlie considers modest dressing, but what does she know? We could just get an answer from the angels of heaven themselves.
What do you think it takes to get into heaven?
Is everything okay, Adam?
Give me a fucking minute, okay?
Act selfless, don't steal, stick it to the man. Are you fucking serious?
Yeah, sure got me here, didn't it? Right, Sarah?
He was the first human soul in heaven.
Act selfless, don't steal, and stick it to the man. Easy enough, and it must be true if it's supported by the High Seraphim herself.
No one here's addicted to.
Oh, right, and remember, no addicts don't get into heaven. What the fuck is wrong with this show? So it should be clear that actually no characters know what sort of guidelines the soul must follow to get into heaven, because there is no actual guideline. Sir Pentious was redeemed despite the sins that he committed in hell because his redemption was purely vibe-based, and this isn't helpful when you are allegedly trying to make a show entirely about the specific journeys that sinners go on to make up for their sins. We have no way of holding the writers of the show accountable for rushed redemption arcs like Sir Pentious's because there is no rubric, despite Heaven and Charlie's Hotel both demanding one. I find the moral compass of this show really boring, surface level, and unexplored. It's so poorly explained and inconsistent that I'm convinced the writers don't have an idea of what constitutes someone being a heaven or hellbound soul in this universe. And I speak in these either or black and white terms because the show presents itself as such. At no point does a character question the institution of there being a good place for good people and a bad place for bad people. It reinforces this with the concept of the hotel. The bad people in the bad place need to become good so they can find fulfillment in the good place. But even within the bad place, there are good guys, despite the fact that the bad place is hell, so everyone there should be guilty of sin. The reveal of Sir Pentious' sin was heavily traumatized, and so was the reveal of Angeinl Dust's sin. We find out that Angeinl Dust killed his father. This is a strong negative reaction from his friends, and Vox and Angeinl Dust act like this is a big, terrible secret.
Remember that lesson on boundaries?
Oh, come on. We won't judge you, Angel. You can tell me, then we can redeem you.
It ain't that easy, Charlie. Now drop it.
It really isn't, is it?
Don't you dare, asshole.
Tell me, princess, what exercise could one do to be forgiven for being a...
Stop!
Murderer?
You shut the fuck up!
What? Sinners kill other sinners in hell like it's sport. If you're in hell, you could stab, dismember, and eat the bowels of another citizen in the street, and Charlie fucking Morningstar would walk past you stuffing your face and offer you a napkin. I just know season 3 will reveal that Angeinl Dust killed his father in self-defense or because he beat him or something. This is the show trying to paint Angel in a morally gray light because he's killed one man, but is this in any way comparable to the evil of the Vees? His sin is so lukewarm and much more excusable than the sins of the antagonists of the show, the same way that Pentious' sin was not a true act of evil. In fact, it was Pentious' inaction, his abstinence from both good and evil, simply allowing the passing of evil, which sent him to the same hell as the villains of Hazbin Hotel. Contrast this with the villains. The sins of Alastor and Baxter are both revealed to be that they're serial killers, which is, does anyone have a backstory that doesn't involve murder? Like Pentious, Angel, Alastor, Vox, All of their backstories involve being a murderer. Is murder the only thing that damns people to hell? Anyway, Alastor and Vox's backstories are more overtly evil because they are the bad guys, so their evils are allowed to be more extreme. There is no nuance here. As a good example of true moral nuance, let's explore Uncle Aaron, the Prowler from Into the Spider-Verse. Now, this is a character with an interesting, complex, gray morality. An artist, brother, and uncle turned professional assassin. A winding path of bad choices in Aaron's life led him to work as a hitman for this movie's main antagonist. He has committed evils, but when he is assigned the task of killing Spider-Man, he cannot bring himself to lay a finger on his nephew. That's fascinating. It makes you want to learn about how a loving, supportive, intelligent family man could have found himself in such a position. You can see a battle of genuine love and evil doing in his heart, melding together in an ambiguous knot. What a strong character. Wouldn't it be so interesting if a well-liked protagonist like Sir Pentious or Angeinl Dust were revealed to have done something genuinely horrible? What if they were the serial killers? What if Angeinl Dust killed his dad to rob him of his assets? What if Sir Pentious agreed to keep the identity of the killer a secret, and in exchange he kept the bodies to desecrate them for his experiments? What if our protagonists, the good guys, are in hell because in life they did something really fucked up? Another strange quirk coming from Hazbin's loose morality is that sometimes, uncomfortably, the really bad people in this show are made to be better in order to push down the good people, and also vice versa. For example, Charlie's incompetence is over-exaggerated in season 2 so that Vaggie can seem more mature in comparison, and so that Vox can seem more intelligent in comparison. Towards the end of season 2, Valentino and Velvet are made into much more sympathetic characters as the show takes the time to detail how they feel that their friendships have been betrayed by Vox. Velvet's cruelty and Valentino's, are downplayed, and this is so Vox can be exaggerated as the sole conflict. There are dramatic shots of Valentino looking sad, like his heart's been broken, as if the audience is supposed to feel sorry for a who, until Vox went rogue, was just as influential and evil as Vox. There is no nuance here. In Hazbin Hotel, there is the right side, the wrong side, and Alastor floating above them all, getting a good laugh out of imagining a fictitious reality in which there is such a thing as good and evil. In Hazbin Hotel, the protagonists are innocent souls who make honest mistakes, and the antagonists are and serial killers. It's boring, uninspired, not how the real world works, and a lost opportunity to write something better. I know Hazbin Hotel can be the amazing show that it thinks it is because we see it everywhere as glittering gemstones buried under mounds of ugly sand. Hazbin Hotel has made history as a YouTube pilot which has graduated into a well-funded, celebrity-headlined, multi-season Prime Video TV show. Vivian deserves a medal for how hard she has worked to put her weird little show on the main stage of popular media. Hazbin's explosive success is a triumph. I just don't know why it has achieved as much as it has. The characters of Hazbin Hotel, the vessels with which the audience can relate to the world and invest themselves in the story's conflicts, suffer from a variety of poor decisions on behalf of the writers. We see characters with inconsistent motivations, unidentifiable character voices, characters which waste precious show resources to exist for fan service instead of plot service, characters with such poorly considered backstories that they border on racist stereotypes, and characters so self-destructive that they threaten to disincentivize the audience from supporting the progression of the narrative. Worst of all, at times, I feel that the creators of the show are too self-aware of the common critiques made about it that the intentional lampshading of its flaws.
Fuck you, you red piece of fuck! Too much fucking red!
Shitty lighting, clashing themes, and too much red.
Means that some of these flaws are intentional. As complicated, skewed, negative as my feelings towards this show are, I cannot stop fucking thinking about it because Hazbin does so much wrong when it has so many opportunities, so much time and money and talent to do it right. But ultimately, what I've enjoyed most about my experience with Hazbin Hotel is when I've logged onto Tumblr and engaged with amazing posts from dedicated fans who fix the character designs, create fanfiction which represents the cultures and identities of the characters, and write analytical posts which explains away plot holes and shallow writing choices made by the showrunners with their own thoughtful headcanons. Ultimately, the best thing about Hazbin Hotel is how easy it is to take the same beautiful bones that lay its foundations and to write something better.
Why have I always been a failure? What can the reason be? I wonder if the world's to blame. I wonder if it could be me. I'm always chasing such a sight for all my